How is everybody doing? This is your last class.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm real good.
I'm great.
Good, excellent. Do you guys have any fears about this class? A lot of people come to this last class and they're like, oh, this is great, it's excellent, and they get to week 2 and they start freaking out. It's a lot of work. I don't want anybody to freak out because they don't understand something or you're confused. So I want to make sure that everyone is okay before we really get started. Are there any questions that you may have?
No?
No? No one with questions?
Are we going to need a lot of materials for this
Yes,
class?
you are. You want to make sure that you go into the class page and you go ahead and look at all of the required materials for each week, because like week 2, you have your chocolate cake, your chocolate pata bomb, and your chocolate glaze. You're going to need a lot of materials for that week. Also leading up to week 6, when you have your tiered cake, you are going to need a lot of materials. You're going to need gum paste, fondant, your rolling pin. You want to make sure that you have enough equipment and you have everything that you need. Okay?
Are we gonna be making those roses with the what is the buttercream icing?
Yes.
Or the other icing? Yeah, because I had to get those special tips.
Yes.
Because I was previously in this class. I only did the first 3 weeks of it, and then it all got shut down before the pandemic came.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes, you are. You're going to need to have tips for your border. You're going to have rose tips, and you're going to need a writing tip because you're going to have to write on your cake. You're going to have to put an inscription on it. Okay?
I don't have a writing tip. That one I don't have.
Well, if you don't have a writing tip, you can just cut the end of the bag and then you can write with it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, I don't know if any of you have went on ahead and looked at the page for the class, because there's a lot of things that have changed, just a few things. I just wanted to show you. You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to double check. All right. So here on the dashboard now, the Ask Your Questions now has changed. Now it is called the walk-in. So I put a little picture here so you could see. So here now you click on the walk-in, and that's where you can post pictures of cakes you do, or, you know, any questions you may have, and everyone can go in there. And I already put some information in there referring to how to torte cakes properly, help with borders, fondant that you're going to need for your cakes, equivalent to the size of your cake, because you may do different size cakes. So that will be helpful. Also, let's see here. When you go down, also, I have field guides here in each week to kind of help you guys with what your assignment is for the week. And for week 1, this is what your cake is going to look like. It's going to be 4 layers, and it's going to be a creaming method cake and your Italian buttercream with top and bottom border. If you want to do something else to it, you can. Okay, but what I wanted to point out here was the weekly lab rubric. It has changed. Okay, so now when you guys see your grading, it has changed a little bit. So now,
Mr. Treat,
yes?
I'm sorry.
Here, you'll see that the rubric now, you have more points that are on your production and execution, okay? And so just make sure that you take a look at that so you know how you're being graded now, okay? Because that has changed a little bit. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys so you know when you're doing your assignments, okay?
Okay.
And then also here, so for week 1, your formulas. You're going to have your yellow butter cake and your Italian buttercream. So you guys have done creaming method, of course. So now
Yeah.
this is a very simple cake. So you just want to make sure that if you are doing a larger cake, you may need to increase this recipe maybe 1.5 to 2 times to get enough cake to in those cake layers. Okay, so just look over it, and then depending upon what cake you have, you're going to you know, for your batter, you want to make sure that you have enough. Okay. Now, let's talk.
How many,
Yes.
how many cakes is that recipe for?
That will give you 2 8-inch layers or 1 10-inch. So if you're making 2 6-inch cakes, you'll probably have enough. Okay.
But
Now,
we're doing 4 layers?
yes. So you're going to tort your cakes. So for example, if I had 2 8-inch pans, I would need to take this and get 4 layers out of these 2 pans. Okay. And then, so, excuse me?
What is the depth on your cake pans?
These are 2 inches. Mine are 2 inches that I have.
Okay, but if we have something smaller, is that okay?
Yeah. But now if you have those 1-inch layers, it's going to be really tight to try to tort those cake layers. So yeah. But I know some of you messaged me about having trouble torting your cake layers. You want to really try to do that because like I posted in there, when you are in industry, you are going to need to be able to tort your cakes. They're not going to have some places, I take that back. Some places are not going to have a cake cutter. Okay. So you want to make sure that you are able to tort your cakes. Okay. Now, what I suggest for you to have your cakes is to have a grease-proof cardboard to put them on. It's really, really helpful because you don't see the greasy stains when you put your buttercream and you're icing your cake. Okay. Also, when you guys are crumb coating your cakes, I find that if you have a straight edge comb or your bench scraper, you can utilize these to help you when you are crumb coating your sides and to get them nice and straight. I also have plastic ones that I use. It helps a lot. Now, I talked about this in my last class. When you are icing the sides of your cakes, most people don't use this, but when I was a production cake maker, this saved my wrist for years. It's a side icer. So if you can see, one side has like a comb and one side is flat. So you would just stick this in your pastry bag and then put your icing in it. And then you would go around the sides of your cake and then you would just have to smooth it. So if I did this all around my cake, I would take this and just spin my turntable and I'm done and smooth the top. So some tools you may find help you to decorate your cake a little easier. Also, when you are icing your cake, I use different spatulas. So I have my offset spatula that I use sometimes, and I have my straight edge spatula. So it just depends on what it is that is more comfortable for you to use when you are icing your cake, okay? Also, you are required to do a border for your week 1 cake. So now I also, in the field guide, I put pictures of it, but your tips, they can be open or closed for your show border, okay? If you don't have one of them, you can always use one of the open tips. This is like a number 10. This is really big. So you can utilize this if you do not have a tip for your show border, okay? If you are having trouble finding any supplies, please reach out to me and let me know, because I know some places stores weren't open and there was a lot of difficulty finding supplies. So please let me know ahead of time if you're having trouble. I don't know in other states who's closed and who's open. So we want to go ahead and nip that in the bud. So that way you guys are okay for everything that you need to do. Also, I want to point out, when you guys are going through the page, there is the videos for each of the recipes, and there is your assignments that you need to follow. Okay, so we want to make sure that you have every picture. I'll pull these back up. That you have every picture for each thing that you need. Okay. Because remember, for everything here, you are going to be graded. So you have your narrative, your sanitation, mise en place, self-ID, and production, and your submission. Okay, so if you need to have your sanitation, your test strips, your bucket, did you work clean through the whole baking process to assembly? It is going to be graded here now based on that. So the whole time of your production, just like if you were working in industry in the kitchen, you want to make sure that every time you're cleaning your area, you're utilizing your sanitizer and wiping your area. Also, you need to have a self-ID from head to toe, okay? You need to have your slip-resistant shoes on, and you need to be prepared, okay? So here, when we have all of our images that we need, you want to make sure that you have everything. So if you go here into, let's say, your Italian buttercream. So here, I want to just go over this recipe with you guys real quick, okay? Now, have you guys made Italian buttercream before? Yes, no, yes? If you do not make this correctly, it could be watery, or it could be lumpy, or it could be a total disaster. So you want to make sure that you follow the directions to a T. I think the most important thing here is to make sure that your butter is at room temperature, okay? Here, you want to make sure that you are heating that sugar and water in a saucepan until the sugar dissolves and the mixture boils, okay? Make sure it hits 242 degrees, okay? Then you're gonna take that syrup, that hot sugar syrup, and you're gonna whip those egg whites, okay? And you are going to whip them until they get to soft peaks, okay? You're gonna drizzle that hot syrup into those egg whites, and you're just gonna start whipping it and whipping it, okay? If it looks funny, do not panic. Just keep whipping it, okay? Just pour that hot syrup in, and it'll start to go down, and then it'll come back up. When you start to add that butter, you want to make sure that your butter is soft enough that in your fingers, it kind of mushes, okay? Maybe the size of a dime. You want to cut them up that tiny, because once that syrup starts to cool, those egg whites cool, you want to go ahead and start putting that butter in a little chunk at a time, and let it beat up and let it mix up. If you see that for some reason it becomes watery, that means, or it seizes up, that means your butter is too cold. So it's important to make sure that it is nice and warm. Let it sit out. Chop it up and let it sit out, and then that way you shouldn't have any trouble. If you mix it up and you feel like it's separated or it's not right, just whip it back up. You can refrigerate this buttercream, okay? Put it in the refrigerator if you are icing it a different day, okay? You want to take that buttercream out of the refrigerator and let it sit out, and you can whip it back up. If it looks like it's separated, don't panic. You can always take a little bit of the buttercream, heat it up in the microwave a little bit, add it to that cold buttercream, and whip it back up, okay? Also, when you guys are planning out how you are going to bake your cakes and do your icing and decorating, it's good to have a plan because it's going to take a couple days probably for you to complete it. If you do it in one day, that's great. But you may want to bake your cake, say on Monday. You may want to make your icing on Tuesday and then decorate on Wednesday. I'm just giving an example because your assignments are due on the Tuesday. So you want to make sure that no matter what, you have a plan, because like I said, once we get further on into the class, if you don't make a plan, you're going to fall behind. And I don't want anybody to fall behind because I've seen that this has happened, and I just worry for you guys, and I don't want you to be stressed. Okay. Do you have any questions on the Italian buttercream? No? Okay. Now let's take a look at the assignment. Okay, so your required photos for this assignment, you're going to need to have your identification photo, your sanitizer, your mise en place. Okay, for your cake, you're going to need what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 photos in total. Okay, your fat and sugar creamed properly. This is a creaming method. So that means you're going to take your butter, which is in the cake, your butter and your sugar, and you're going to cream it about 5 to 10 minutes, depending upon if your butter is cold or not. You're going to want to cream it and beat it until it becomes light and fluffy. Then you're going to incorporate those eggs one at a time. Okay, and you add in your vanilla at this time with your eggs. Okay, you're going to scale. You can add in all your dry after that. Always when you're mixing cakes, you just want to add in all your ingredients until they are incorporated, okay? You don't want to over mix a cake because then you're going to have tunneling. Those are those holes that come into your cake, and then it looks really funny and odd when you cut it. Also, it can make your cake very dense and heavy, okay? So you're going to want to scale your batter into your prepared pans. And like for me, whenever I have my pans, I always cut a parchment paper and put it in the bottom because I like to have my cakes release easy out of the pan. You know, sometimes, oh God, I forgot to spray it or whatever, and it may get stuck, okay? And you don't want to have to waste ingredients, okay? Then you're going to bake your cakes, and you're going to show images of that, and then you're going to cool your cakes, and you're going to show them trimmed and cut into your layers, okay? Now for your buttercream, your egg whites in the mixing bowl, your butter prepped, and then you're going to need your thermometer to show the temperature of your cooked sugar, okay? You're going to have to show your meringue at the full volume before the butter is incorporated and after, because we're going to need to see your finished buttercream, okay? Now you're going to have to show filling your cake layers, then icing with that crumb coat, okay? Now, some of you, if you're not used to doing cakes and if you feel that it's too soft, once you do the crumb coat, you can go ahead and take that cake and put it in the refrigerator to kind of set up a little bit. And that gives you a little sturdier surface to do that final coat of icing with, okay? So you can add your final coat of buttercream, and then you're going to put your border on. And you're going to take a piece of the cake, cut it out, and put it on a plate also for your photo. If you find that you don't want to have just, you know, a straight edge on your cake, you can use a comb and you can have a detail. You can write on your cake, you can add flowers, you can make your cake different colors. It just depends on what you would like to do, okay? So if you want to make any additions to your cake, that's fine. Be creative. Okay, if while you are making your cake, you are having some trouble, please reach out to me. Yes, you have a question? Karen. Yes.
I have questions I've been trying to get in. One, you were saying something about the self-ID from head to toe. So I've been just taking photo shots of my thing. Are you wanting our full body?
Yes, they were making changes because they wanted everyone to see that they were in uniform, full uniform.
Okay, so now it's a full body rather than just the headshot.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you were talking about the cake and just incorporated. So it shouldn't be a smooth batter, or we should have it as a smooth batter.
Yes, it should definitely be a smooth batter.
No lumps and all that, right?
No, no lumps.
Okay.
Once you go ahead and mix that, once you mix your eggs and then you add your dry ingredients in, you want to mix it to incorporate and then put it into your cake pans. Go ahead and get them baked in the oven.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Yes, on that, the self-ID,
Yes.
how do we get a full body shot if we're doing it ourselves?
Well, if you do your shot and I can see that you have your jacket, your apron, your hat, that's fine. I will accept that because I know it's hard to do by yourself.
And
Some
also
some people were doing photo IDs and they were in bare feet. So they just want to make sure that everybody's in full uniform. So if you have your jacket, your hat, your apron, that's fine. I'll accept that. Okay.
yes, ma'am. And also on the cake, the cake stand,
Yes.
do we need to get one of those?
If you have a turntable,
Yes.
you have a turntable, it's much easier for you to decorate with. Because when you're able to turn the turntable, it's helping you do all the work. I'm going to use this as my cake. If you're here and you're trying to do your cake and ice it with a spatula, you have to turn it with your hand, and it's a lot more difficult. So if you have a turntable, it makes it so much easier for you to be able to ice your cakes. Lucero, you have a question? Hold on. I unmuted you. Lucero,
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yes, hello?
Yes.
Okay, so about the Italian buttercream,
Yes.
I made that before, and when I finished it, it was like grainy. Do you think it was because I didn't dissolve like the sugar correctly?
Yes. Well, number one, if it becomes grainy, you have to remember when you're cooking sugar syrup, you have to make sure also that your pan is free from any debris because the sugar can crystallize. So say
Right.
you had something, I don't know, say you cook something in your pot and there's something in it, that can also cause you to have sugar crystals. So what I like to do is sometimes I have a pot, I'll take salt and water and kind of scrub the pot and it'll help clean it. So there's no other particles in your pot. So that way your sugar cooks.
Okay. Yeah, because like the first time that I did it, just the sugar, I had to redo it because it got so hard. It was so sad.
Yeah,
It's so hard.
it can seize up. Also, like I said,
Yeah.
if your butter is not at room temperature, that can also be a problem.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Eliza, did you have a question? No. Okay, Tracy?
Yes, ma'am. Question is the minimum size round 6 or 8 inch? I
It can
couldn't.
be 6. It can be 6.
It can be 6. Okay.
Yes, it can. That's fine. As long as I have 4 layers.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. So if any of you are making bigger layers, make sure that you have enough buttercream to accommodate for that. Okay. Okay. Any more questions? Melissa?
Can we add a fruit filling other than the actual frosting inside?
Yes, you can add anything that you want to the cake. You can add a filling. You can add simple syrup to your cake layers to add flavor. You can add dragees for decoration. You can make your buttercream flowers. You can add anything that you want. You can color your icing. You can airbrush your cake. Whatever you want to do, you can. Be creative. Besides, this is your last class before your externship. So you want to go ahead and take these photos to put in your portfolio. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Eliza, yes.
So I had previously taken this class and I'm actually retaking it. And I went to go look at my old pictures and used a 9-inch circular pan. Is it okay if I use a 6-inch instead? The 9-inch didn't look too good stacked.
Yes, you can do the 6-inch, definitely.
Okay, because yeah, I was just like, oh, I was gonna resubmit it and then re-looked at it and was like, that's not worth it.
No, when you're starting out, cake decorating can be very difficult because you're creating this monstrosity. Like you'll see, you've been here, you'll see through, each week when you're stacking your cakes, you want to make sure they're stable and they're flat, because if they're not, they can fall and it's a disaster. So if you want to use a 6-inch cake pan for the first cake, that's fine. Okay. But for week 2, you will need to use a larger pan because you have a chocolate pata bomb mousse that you'll be making, and it needs to be layered and frozen in the pan. So once we get into next week, we'll discuss that a little bit more because it is a little more intense. Okay. Melissa, you got another question?
Sorry, I probably hit it by mistake. Sorry.
That's
No.
okay. Okay, so now I just want to talk to you guys about getting assignments in and making a plan. As I said before, you want to make sure that each week you set out a plan, because for week 1, you have your knowledge checks and then you have your assignment. When you get into week 3 and 5, you're going to have your discussion forums and your knowledge check. And when you get into week 2, if you look ahead, it is a very intensive week because your assignment has 3 components. So I just want you guys to kind of look ahead and then look to see what ingredients that you're going to need. For week 1, you're going to need your cake pans, your cake board, your ingredients. You're going to need a lot of butter in this class, and I know it's expensive. For week 2, you're going to need chocolate, okay? Now, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I do want to mention it. Try to get the Baker's chocolate block. I'll put a picture of what chocolate you should get that you could find in your grocery store in, I was going to say Class Cafe again, in the walk-in. So that way you guys can look. It's going to be more difficult making that chocolate mousse if you use chocolate chips, because chocolate chips are really not meant to be melted to make this. Your chocolate bars have that cocoa butter in it that makes it easier to melt. Yes, you can use the chocolate pistoles. It doesn't have to be in the bar form. No, you can use the pistoles or the bar chocolate. But the chocolate chips, a lot of students in the previous class had a lot of trouble with chocolate chips and it's seizing back up because it doesn't melt as smoothly as that couverture does. So you'll get little chocolate chunks into your mousse. So you want to go ahead and make sure that you purchase your items ahead of time. Also, when you get into week 3, you will be making your chiffon cake, your egg foam cake with Swiss buttercream and American buttercream, okay? So then you're gonna need more for that. Then after week 3 is when you start week 4 and 5, and you are just starting your assembly for your week 6 final cake, okay? So your week 4 and 5 is when you will need your gum paste and your fondant. You do not have to make your fondant or your gum paste. If you want to make it, you can. There is a recipe for rolled fondant. It's very easy to make. It's cheaper if you make it, but you don't have to, okay? So for those weeks, you're going to need 50-50. 50-50 is half fondant, half gum paste. That's what you're going to use to make your flowers, okay? So say for the final cake, you're required to have 3 flowers, 3 roses. So if you want to make an extravagant cake and you want to make more, then you're going to need more fondant, okay? Now, rolled fondant becomes hard very quickly. That's why we mix it 50-50, okay? So you're going to use that to make your flowers only. You are going to need more rolled fondant for your cake because the rolled fondant is a different medium and it doesn't harden as gum paste does. So you're going to need that to roll your cake. I put in the walk-in what gum paste to use, okay? So I just want you guys, how much fondant you need for your cake. So just pay attention and go into that walk-in and take a look at the things that I've posted already to help you, okay? Here you do not, in this class, you don't temper the chocolate. You just need to melt it in order to make your glaze and into your chocolate mousse. But if you want to temper it, you can. If you want to get that couverture, but that is more expensive if you get that.
Hey, Chef.
Yes.
If I'm going to use 2 9-inch pans, how much would you scale that recipe?
I would at least do 1.5 times.
Okay.
Because you want to make sure whenever you fill a cake pan, you want to make sure that it is halfway to 3/4 in that cake pan. So if I have my cake pan here, I want my batter at least up to here, because then it's going to rise to the top. And I know that I'm going to have a nice cake layer. So for you, Christine, if you have those shorter cake pans, just make sure you put probably a little bit of extra batter so you get that nice rise and you'll be able to tort it. Because if it's too thin, you may almost want to freeze it to tort it because you don't want it to fall apart.
But we can use a larger pan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You just want, I know you said, because mine are like, this pan is 2 inches. So if you have the smaller pans that are just for one layer, because if you're just putting one layer on top of another, it's kind of hard to tort them depending upon how thick those layers are. So you want to make sure that you're able to cut them in half without them falling apart.
What about a springform pan?
You can bake your cakes in a springform pan.
Okay. And I have one other real quick question. I know you got people got their hands up, but
sure.
Real quick. Can you bake your cakes in advance for all 6 weeks?
Sure can.
Use them in the freezer?
You sure can.
Okay.
I would advise that. Like I said, this class goes very fast and you want to make sure that you stay on top of everything. So if you say, hey, I'm going to take one day and bake all my cakes for the whole class, go right ahead. Just remember, if you do that for week 6 final cake, which cakes you would bake in week 4, you want to make sure that you have 2 different sizes, because when you stack your cakes, the bottom, say for instance, it could be a 9-inch, the top needs to be a 6-inch. Okay, so just make sure you bake 2 different sizes, and you're going to need 3 to 4 layers for each tier. I didn't hear you.
I said something not nice, sorry.
Uh-oh. Okay. All right, Lucero. It does not want to unmute today. Lowered her hand. Okay. Anybody else have any questions about cake? Eliza, you lowered your hand. So do you guys have any questions about your cake layers, your cake sizes, anything that you need? Your white chocolate couverture, yes, that will work. And also in week 2, you are making a glaze for your cake. If you want to make a ganache, that is also acceptable. Yes, Karen.
I have a question. Can we use dark chocolate for our mousse?
Yes, you can.
And for the narrative, every time we put, do you want just the main of what you want, or what we've added also measured out, written on the narrative, or separate narratives for each item that we end up doing? Like the frosting is one narrative, the cake is another narrative, or just all on one narrative?
If you can fit everything on one narrative, that is awesome. But make sure that you do all of that in your baker's percentage. All of that has to be done for everything. So make sure it's complete, because as I showed you guys the new rubric, you don't want to lose points because you didn't add something in there. So yeah, go ahead and put everything on one, but if you have to put the other half on a second one, that's fine. Yes, you can add fruit to your cake, and that wouldn't change anything. You can add fruit into the middle of your cake. Now, if you add fruit in between your layers, make sure that you pipe a buttercream dam around the outside of, around the edge of the cake, so your fruit doesn't spill out once you put it together and ice it. You can add fruit to your batter, but just remember that you're adding fruit, so you're adding possibly more water content. So by adding that fruit, you can make your cake heavy and dense. So just be careful when you add it, okay? If you're adding something, for example, like fresh blueberries, you may want to coat them in flour, like if you're making a blueberry muffin, so they don't sink to the bottom. So just be careful when you're adding fruit to the batter, because you don't want to waterlog it and make that cake too dense and heavy, and then it's almost not cooked. So just be careful when you're adding that fruit, okay? Okay, any more questions? Does everyone have the supplies that they need for week 1? I don't know if everybody's already taken a look at the assignment of what they need, but I just want to make sure.
I just need to get my cake pans.
Okay.
I have everything else.
Okay. And then make sure that you guys take a look into next week and then see what you need. Because say if you, oh my gosh, I don't know, I can't find, let's see, glue, gum paste glue. You're going to need glue. It's easy to make. So if you find out that once you go through the inventory for each week that you are missing something, or you don't have it, or you can't get it, message me, because I may have a solution of you can substitute. Also, when you are looking for supplies, because I know sometimes people like to get their supplies ahead of time. If you are looking for glycerin and you can't find it, you can substitute corn syrup, okay? Because I know there's issues still in some stores. So reach out to me and let me know if you're not able to find a product, because I know they've, a lot of places, stores reopened, then they closed again, with the pandemic going on. So just make sure that you reach out to me and send me a message as soon as you can, so that way we can figure something out, okay? Are you guys ready to bake and start decorating? I'm so excited to see what you guys do. I'm so excited. So as I said, for your first cake, you can decorate it. You can do whatever you want. If you want to write an inscription, you can. Next week, what I may do is show you guys how to write. Have any of you written on cakes yet? No? Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is I may either make a video and add it on there, because I put one in the walk-in to help with borders, but maybe I'll make a little video on how to help you how to write on cakes, because I also teach in high school, and I teach them how to write on cakes by connecting the dots. So that's how I teach them how to, you know, if you had the little line paper with the dots, if you do little dots, that's how I teach them to print on cakes. So it's really easy until you learn how to do cursive, because it's all about control. Now, I know where I live in Arizona, it's about 105 degrees, so it is extremely hot. When you are in your house and you find that your buttercream, for some reason, is melting, refrigerate it and then try to use it. My hands are very cold, so I can have a buttercream bag in my hand for about a half an hour and nothing. Some people I work with, they have really hot hands and it like turns to soup. So you may need to have it thicker. You're going to make Italian buttercream, Swiss, and American buttercream. I prefer American buttercream to decorate with because I can control it and make it stiffer, make it smoother, make it, you know, there's so many different things that you can do. Now, when you start to color your icing, you're going to find that your Swiss and your Italian buttercream, the colors may not be true. What I mean by that is that if you want to get, say, navy blue, you're not going to get navy blue because of the high butter content. So you got to remember those icings may be a little off-white. So if you color those, it's going to look somewhat close to that color. If you color American buttercream or decorator buttercream, because it has shortening, it's going to absorb that color and it's going to give you a true color. So if you want black, it's going to give you black. If you want red, American buttercream will give you red or dark green or forest green. So you got to remember that when you are doing colors. Also, if you are airbrushing, I know some people have airbrushes, some don't, but if you are, or you have the can spray of airbrush, remember that too. If you're spraying American buttercream, it will give you a truer color than the other buttercreams, okay? So just keep that in mind. Yes, and you need a top and bottom border for week 1.
Jeff,
Yeah.
real quick.
Yes.
On the buttercreams, I was told at one time you can leave them sit out.
You can.
For how long of a time you can leave? Like if you make them today, how long can you leave them sit out before? Do they go bad or?
No, well, I think at this time it's more that it's going to melt because of the heat. But if your house is cool, you should be able to leave it out with no problem. But
okay, and that's on the Italian and the French and the regular.
If you have American buttercream can sit out forever. But because of the way that the Italian and Swiss are mixed, it may start to separate. So you may want to refrigerate them if it's warm. See, like here where I live, I would never leave it out because it's too hot. So you got to kind of judge where you are. If it stays cool in your house, then you could probably leave it on the counter, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions, guys? Is everybody good for this week? And like I said, if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to just send me a message, okay? I usually answer everybody pretty quickly. Text message me, it's quickest. I always have my phone with me. Email me. So just let me know if you guys are having any trouble. And you can send me pictures and text me and say, hey, is this right? Does this look right? Is this enough cake batter? Because I want you guys to go ahead and do that so you don't make a mistake and have to throw anything away. Before you throw anything out, send me a picture. I may be able to help you fix it. Okay, say you take your cake out of the pan and you didn't have the parchment paper circle and half of your cake is stuck to the cake pan. That can be fixed. You can glue your cake together. Yes, Karen.
I have a freezer problem. I don't have enough room in my freezer for cakes.
Okay, you can refrigerate your cakes. That's not no, you don't have refrigerator or freezer space?
They're packed. I have a small refrigerator.
Okay. I would suggest probably doing smaller. Well, here's the thing. for your issue, what you may need to do is go ahead and make everything within 1 to 2 days, because you can leave
Right.
your cake out. It doesn't have to be refrigerated. It's just, for storage if you're going to do it a couple days. So you can make your cake, say today, and ice it tomorrow and ice it up and be done.
Okay.
Because you may run into an issue though for your stacked cake for week 6.
That's, yeah.
So what I would suggest for that
Go to
is
a friend's house.
you may have to, because you're going to need those photos of those cake layers for week 4, and then you're not making it till week 6, not unless you do all of the production and then you do your final cake in week 4. But that's a lot. So I don't know if that would work.
Well, I could, for the final, I could do the full production on week 6.
Okay.
Each week, what I was planning on doing is just each week making the as if it was that week and not holding anything over black because of the room space.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, is that okay if I do that?
Yeah. We'll figure something out for you.
Okay.
So we'll because there was someone else who had that issue. So we'll talk about that. That's not a problem. I'll work with you on that.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions? Everybody's good? Good, Aaron? Everybody's good? Okay. Now, like I said, I'm also going to put some links in I keep saying cafe because it was cafe. They just changed it like yesterday. So the walk-in. I'm also going to put some links of places if you find out that you are out of supplies. I like the Webstaurant store, Plastic Container City. They have a lot of containers. They have containers for cupcakes, cakes, macarons, all sorts of things. And you can buy it by the case or by the piece. So I really like to utilize them a lot of times when I'm baking. Michael's, AC Moore, Hobby Lobby. Also, sometimes if you go to your local Walmart and you need a box or cake boards, they'll sell them to you. So that's also another outlet for you to get supplies, because I know everyone's, in different parts of the country here. So also getting supplies, they can be expensive. The dollar store. I have a 99-cent store by me. You'd be amazed at what you can find in there. Sugar, flour, sprinkles, chocolate sometimes. So just pay attention whenever you're out. You may find something that you need that's there. Okay? Any more questions? Everybody's good?
I have a question. Is it true that when you add a coloring to buttercream, for example, you have to wait for it to set, like for maybe half an hour or so, in order for it to absorb the actual color that it really is?
A half an hour is a bit long. It depends, like I said, what icing you have. Like I said, if you're doing American buttercream, the longer it sits, the darker it's going to get. But you can get a true
that's
color.
the thing, because I read it in an article of this really prestigious baker. She was giving an advice on that because people were actually complaining about it.
Yeah.
So she actually advised that you wait until the actual buttercream absorbs and don't keep on adding color to it. So it actually actually sets the color. It sets.
Yes. Also, the more color you add, it's going to taste different. Your red, your green, your black. The more color you add, it's going to taste bitter. So yes, you can let it set. Like I said, you can add airbrushing to it to darken it, but the longer you let it sit, it's going to get darker.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Karen.
Would you say it's better to use the gel food coloring or the liquid?
The gel. Because you're using less of that gel, that the liquid, sometimes you have to use twice as much. And then you got to remember that liquid, you're adding more water content into your buttercream. So you use your gel color, it's not giving you that much moisture into your icing.
What's the shelf life on the gel?
On the gel,
Yeah.
depends where you get it from, but about a year.
About a year.
Yeah. Because you can also use powders too. Like I use, if like I'm baking a vegan cake for red, I might use beetroot powder. So it just depends. Or I may use avocado powder for a different flavor. So it just depends on who you're baking it for or what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Any more questions? Let's see. Amazing Savings, someone put in the chat, is another place that you can get food coloring. Gel is better. Gel, I prefer to use gel because you can use just a dab to get a color versus you may have to use a whole tube of the liquid to get the color. And like I said, you're adding more liquid into your buttercream. So you got to remember it's going to change the consistency and it's going to make it softer. Because once you start piping decorations, you're going to want a stiffer buttercream because the stiffer the buttercream, the easier it is for you to pipe. Softer buttercream is for writing. And if you're not used to the pressure, you're going to have a lot of difficulties. Any questions? Good. All right, guys. All right, then I guess we're done for today. So I am so excited for all of you to start decorating and baking this week. So if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me and then I will get back to you and help you along the way. Okay? Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.